Hello, 6 Block. Melania here, on my way back to you. Until I get there, I figure we can get a jump start on these notes. Just take out your loose leaf or um, notebook, whatever system you use, and get writing. It's our new unit. We'll be talking about revelation. There are two types of revelation: natural revelation and divine revelation. Yeah, if at any point you need Mr. Quinn to press pause so you can catch up, feel free to scream at him. Politely, of course. So, yeah, some vocabulary will be the first order of business here. Some vocabulary to start off. Reason, revelation, creation, natural, supernatural, and divine. And I'll zoom in just a second here so you can see these definitions. You'll definitely want to write down what I have up here, but then anything that I say in the course of explaining these definitions that you find helpful, I would, write it down too. It's your notes. Whatever you think will help. Abbreviate the heck out of everything. Your notes. So, some vocabulary to start. Reason is human intelligence or wisdom, logic, the ability to think rationally. This is classically speaking what separates us from the mere beasts of the field, right? From other animals. So think about the smartest animals you know of, like dogs are really smart, chimpanzees, dolphins, elephants, blackbirds even are very smart. Some of them even show a capacity for language. What no other animal seems to have, though, is what we call reason, which is this ability to think rationally, or another way of putting this is to think abstractly. So my favorite example of this is shelter. A bear will build the same type of shelter wherever it goes. A bee will always build the same type of shelter wherever it goes. The beaver, always a fox, always the same. Only humans are able to think of the abstract concept of shelter, and then depending on what kind of shelter would be best, build different types of houses or lean-tos or tents or whatever it is. So that's reason. Revelation. Revelation is a fancy word for knowledge about God. And it shares the same root word as reveal. So think of it as revelation, or something revealed by God. It's not something that we could get on our own, or like it's not something that we're inventing or creating. It's something that God has chosen to let us see. Creation. So whenever we say the word creation in this class, we mean something very specific. And that very specific something is literally everything in the universe. So from the smallest subatomic particle and single-celled creatures to the largest mountains and deepest valleys, to the planet itself, to the solar system, to galaxies. These are all parts of creation. In fact, there's only one thing that is not part of creation. That's the creator. So the opposite of creation, in a way, is creator. And then anything that is in creation, we would call a creature. So I'm a creature, you're a creature, rocks are creatures, the sun is a creature. If it's part of creation, it's a creature. It doesn't have to be alive. It's still something that's created. Natural is the next one. So natural just means that it's having to do with nature, coming from nature. And the opposite of natural, in a way, is supernatural. So supernatural is what's on top of nature, or what goes beyond nature. So it's something that we can do with extra help from God is supernatural. Yeah, so natural versus supernatural, it's like, what do we have when it's just on our own without extra help from God? Supernatural is when God, yeah, pitches in some extra help. And then divine, if you didn't know already, means having to do with God, like godness. Divinity is the noun form of it. So, with these terms in hand, let's go to the idea of natural revelation. So, remember, natural is having to do with nature. Oh, sorry. There we go. Natural having to do with nature, and then revelation is knowledge about God. So, it's knowledge we have about God just from nature itself. And the official definition here is the process by which God reveals himself to our reason through creation. So here is a striking claim of the church. In order to know with certainty that God exists, you do not need faith. All you need is reason. According to the Catholic Church, all you need in order to know with certainty that God exists is to use your reason, and you can come to the right conclusion about God's existence and its basic nature, actually. That might sound really like, what is that even? How could that even be possible? If it's God, it's faith stuff, right? Here's an analogy that I like to use. So imagine, weirdly, that everyone in Duchenne, we all go through our day like normal, but not one of us has ever met the head of school, Mrs. Brutney. In fact, we don't even know her name, Mrs. Brutney. We don't even know if it's a he or a she. Some people claim they've met the head of school, that is this woman named Mrs. Brutney, but they always seem kind of weird, or why doesn't she just reveal herself to everyone if she's really here? And so many people don't even believe that there is a head of school, that Dr. Hickman is as high as it goes when it comes to authority figures here. And others are true believers and offer prayers to Mrs. Brutney outside her what they believe to be her office. But no one that you've met, at least, and no one that I've met, has personally encountered the head of school. And so we decided as a class that we want to figure out, is there a head of school, yes or no? What can we do? What could we do to figure out whether or not if this figure is a real person or not? So yeah, we could go around and ask people individually, like, are you the head of school? Are you the head of school? Most people would say no, right? But even if they said yes, how would we be able to determine whether they're telling the truth or not? Oh, we could hook them up to a lie detector, you might be thinking. But lie detectors can be, you can game the system, so to speak. You can fool a metal detector. And oftentimes, it's inconclusive. So, yeah, we can't just rely on people saying whether or not they are the head of school. We would need to figure out something only the head of school could do. So I don't know if you know this, but Mrs. Brutney is in charge of hiring. So on everyone's contracts, it's not Dr. Hickman who signs it, it's Mrs. Brutney. So yeah, armed with this knowledge that the principal doesn't hire people, that she's not the one signing the contracts, we know that people are getting hired. And we know that there must be some authority that is hiring them. Whatever that authority is, let's assume that it's the head of school. The hirer is the head of school. So already we know that by the process of elimination, there must be a figure that has the power to hire. This is one of the attributes of the head of school. We haven't met this head of school yet, but we know with certainty that if there is a head of school, it would be the person with the authority to hire. So we would search through the records, all of the paperwork that Duchenne creates, and we find a document, a contract, signed by, for instance, me. You can find a copy of my contract. My signature on one side, and then the signature of another person on the other side. You can't make out what the signature says because signatures are impossible to read. But yeah, we have somebody signed a piece of paper hiring people. That is the head of school. We have proof that there is a hirer. We have proof that there is a head of school. Using reason alone, we haven't encountered this person. We haven't talked to them. We haven't had to believe anything yet. We're just investigating using reason alone and the process of elimination, process of deduction. Or let's say we want to find the head of school's office. We grab the blueprints, right, and we just make our way room through room of the entire school. And we're able to say, oh, this room is used for this purpose. Let's say we do that, and there's one room that we cannot open, that no school official has the key to. It's locked. And let's also say, this is where the analogy breaks down, that there's like magic on this door, and so like we can't even like take an axe to it. It's indestructible and unopenable. We can assume, using the process of deduction, that if the head of school has an office, this would be the office, right? It's something that no other authority has the key to. So there must be a higher authority that does have that key, because, yeah, locks are made for keys, or keys are made for locks. We can't open it, but we know that, like, using reason alone, that this head of school has this office and the power to hire. We have not met this head of school, but we know that the head of school exists. But that's all we know. There is a limit to the amount that we can know about God using reason alone. But we can know quite a bit, right? We can know certain facts about God's attributes, what God must be like, just using reason. So if there are people on a desert island, they have no connection to any religion, they've never been raised with any idea of God, as long as they have reason and like enough education to awaken their use of reason, and they use their reason well enough, they can come to the certain conclusion that there must be some type of supreme being. They would be able to meditate on the nature of existence and just using reason alone, think about things like the nature of change and how every change requires a changer that is not itself changed in the process, or how every effect that we see is caused by something. Every effect requires a cause. But yeah, if you follow that logic back all the way, there must be some cause that is itself uncaused by anything before it. An uncaused cause. There must be some mover that sets things into motion that is itself unmoved. There must be all of these different attributes. Using reason alone, we can come to these conclusions. Just like math, right? Like, so somebody on a desert island, as long as they had enough education to awaken their use of reason, they could come to mathematical truths. This is the same thing, but philosophical truths, or logical truths. Here's one more example I'll give you. Imagine you're on a hill, and you can see from one end of the horizon to the other a train on the tracks, and it's moving. And it's the longest train that you've ever seen. In fact, you cannot see the beginning of it or the end of it, but it's moving. If you were, to ask, why is that particular train car moving, this one right here, the answer would be, this one in front of it is pulling it, right? And why is this one moving? Well, the one in front of it is moving and pulling it. Well, why is this one moving? Well, the one in front of it is pulling it. You could know, without even seeing the beginning of the train, you would be able to reason that there must be somewhere at the beginning of the train some type of car that doesn't depend on the previous car to be pulled, but rather has within itself the ability to propel itself. Some type of locomotive, some engine that can pull itself and potentially pull others in its wake. That is just using reason alone, without even seeing it. You can, by the process of reasoning, come to this conclusion with certainty. Even if the rest of the train is infinite in scope, we know that at the beginning there must be some different type of car that doesn't depend on another car for its motion, but rather one that generates its own motion. So too with God. All of these events in the world are caused by prior events. Why are we here on earth? Well, our parents had us, and their parents had them, and all the way back until the beginning of life. And before that, there was 4 billion years ago when the earth was initially formed. And even before that, 12 billion years ago, when the sun was first put together in a nebula. And 14 billion years, the universe started with the Big Bang. We know that there must be some type of entity, force, that doesn't depend on a prior force to give it existence. An uncaused cause, an unmoved mover. We call that unmoved mover God. And that's where I'll leave it for right now. You can work on reading pages 21 through 32. We have that quiz on Friday. And I'll be back before the end of the block.